And our second speaker is Darren Cawley, and Darren's speech is entitled DJs Autobiography.
Have you ever been sick? Have you ever been very sick? Have you ever been so sick that your whole life was put on hold? This evening I'm talking about a biography I recently read, and I'm taking a short piece of the man's life, his 20s specifically. It starts for me, for that particular chapter, is in chapter 5, and he talks about when he was in hospital. And he was lying in hospital beside his mother. He was after having a load of tests done. And they were waiting for the doctor to come in and fill them in on the results. And his mother, being a mother, was very worried and very anxious and nervous and asking all questions. And he was thinking, there's no big deal. I just have a headache and my vision is a bit bad. He kept saying, you know, he was thinking the worst case scenario is I might need glasses. You know, that was his worst case. So the doctor came in and said, we're very, very sorry, but you have chronic end-stage renal failure. So he looked bemused, he looked at his mother, she was crying. The doctor had just said, I'm very, very sorry. So the first question that came into his head was, am I going to die? He had no idea what all that stuff meant. So the doctor assured him, no, you're not going to die, you're going to go on this thing called dialysis. And he said, what the hell is dialysis? And the doctor explained, but he realised, as he said later, there's no point in him explaining, because that very night he found out exactly what it was. He was wheeled into theatre where they inserted a very large needle, he said very uncomfortably, into his groin. And there was 2 tubes coming out. And these tubes were connected to this huge machine with all dials and numbers and tubes everywhere. And they connected him up to the machine, and next thing his blood came out of one tube, all through the machine, pumps, down through filters, and back in the other machine, tube. And that went on for 3 or 4 hours, and he just sat there totally bemused at what was going on. So that was the start of dialysis. Now he stayed in his college, and for the last year that he was there, and he got his degree, but it was worthless to him because he had no interest in what he was doing. His whole life had been taken over by going to the hospital every 2 days. Luckily, after 6 months after college, he got a transplant. He got the gift of life. He got a chance to live a normal existence again. It was a picture to him of what life should be like, playing football, meeting friends, enjoying himself. But the gift of life he received had to be returned because the kidney had failed due to some mysterious virus. And little did he know at the time that the rest of his 20s were going to be spent going to the hospital every 2 days to get dialysis. He was 23 at this stage. So, upon losing the transplant, that the next morning he was wheeled down a corridor and into this room, and he was kind of doped up on morphine and drugs and everything, and he saw very little initially, but he heard all the beeps and noises and doctors running around, and he realised where he was straight away. He was back in this club where they made a special exception to allow him into it, because everyone else there was 30 years older than him, and that was what dialysis was to him. Now, I've read other books like this, like Lance Armstrong, for example, but he's kind of a different story. He won the Tour de France 7 times. He was a millionaire, celebrity girlfriends, whereas this book was more of an ordinary person. It could have been me, could be you, could be any of us. And he went on to talk a lot about what it was like. Like he had girlfriends, plenty of girlfriends, but he never stayed with them because he was very worried that he didn't want to put his health and sickness and drag them to hospitals and waiting around for him at theatre, so he always pushed them away. And it also talks about what dialysis was actually like for him. He's sitting in a hospital surrounded by people 30 years older than him, and they're all talking about the life they've lived, the experiences they've had, their travels, their career, their families and children and all these stories, while he's sitting there looking forward hopelessly, thinking about all the experiences he's missing of the travels. He says he needed a spaceship to get to where he wanted to go. Career which was non-existent, you know, all these problems he was having. So it was very hard. All he wanted was a normal life, a normal existence, just like the rest of his peers. And the sad thing was, he could have had it. Now I'm 34, you know, I'm getting married next year, I'm on a honeymoon probably around the world, you know, everything is going great. And we'll complain about our petty problems and our daily anxieties. But these didn't really mean a lot to him, in that he spent all these years waiting for the call, waiting for this gift of life which never came. So many people don't know about the hundreds in that exact same condition. And that if they could carry with them this card, and by having this card, the thousands of people who die tragically and prematurely every year could help all those in such need. Now in Ireland there's over 600 people waiting. In England there's thousands. In America it's over 25,000. So many people waiting for the call, waiting for this. Now I began by asking, has anyone here ever been sick? Really sick? So sick that their life had to be put on hold. Well, this young man was. And I know, because the chapters from the book that I have taken are the chapters not from a book, but from my own memory. Because I am DJ, and they were my experiences in my 20s living with a long-term illness.